Apple posted $100 billion in quarterly revenue. The same quarter, they announced they're closing 3 stores, including the only unionized Apple store in America. Weird, right? Your zip code's property tax base is actually next. Here's why Apple store closures are a bigger deal than you think.
Apple just shut down 3 retail stores. Same quarter, record profits. That is not a contradiction. It is a signal. The malls those stores anchored have already crossed the line. When Apple leaves, it means the numbers stopped working for the most valuable retail brand in the country. After that, the sequence is automatic. Anchor leaves, foot traffic drops, smaller stores close. Vacancy climbs, mall revenue falls, local tax base shrinks. Your property tax bill fills the gap. By the end of this video, you will see exactly how Apple's exit becomes your expense, why Sears already mapped this path, and what you can do before your next assessment catches up to the reality the vacancy data already shows. When a major retailer that draws consistent foot traffic to a mall exits, it triggers a chain reaction with a documented endpoint. The economists call it the doom loop. The anchor exits. The customers who came specifically for that anchor stop coming. The smaller stores that depended on that foot traffic see their sales fall without changing anything about how they operate. At lease renewal, they do not sign. Vacancy climbs. The next anchor reads the rising vacancy rate and recalculates whether staying is worth it. When vacancy crosses a threshold, the math stops working for everyone inside the property simultaneously. The cycle feeds itself. $171 billion in documented retail property wealth losses confirms this is not a theory. It is the measured outcome of this sequence running to completion across American retail markets. And it does not stay inside the mall. It exits through the property tax base and lands on your bill. Sears is not a distant historical reference. It is the documented proof of exactly what happens next at the 3 malls Apple just left. And the data connects them directly. In 2018, Sears filed for bankruptcy and began liquidating. At its peak, the company operated over 3,000 United States locations. Today, fewer than 20 remain. A 2019 study by researchers at the University of Wisconsin found that shopping malls, which lost a Sears anchor, saw average vacancy rates climb from roughly 10% to above 25% within 18 months of the closure. Property values in those mall corridors declined an average of 25 to 30% within 2 years of the anchor exit. The county tax base impact followed on a 12 to 24-month lag as assessments were revised downward. For most homeowners, this means property tax increases typically arrive about 1 to 2 years after a major anchor store leaves, once the county adjusts to make up for lost commercial revenue. Towson Town Center is already at 26% vacancy before Apple leaves. That number is not a warning sign. It is the post-Sears vacancy rate that other malls reached 18 months after losing their anchor. Towson is already there. Trumbull Mall's owner has already defaulted on a $152.3 million loan. Shops at North County has already lost Sears, Nordstrom, and 24 Hour Fitness and rebranded entirely. What makes Sears directly relevant to Apple right now is not that Apple is struggling. It is that the 3 properties Apple just exited have already reached vacancy. Apple read the exit math that Sears created. The county assessors in Towson, Trumbull, and Escondido are about to run the same numbers. Apple announced on April 9th, 2026 that 3 retail locations would close effective June 11th. Towson Town Center in Maryland, Trumbull Mall in Connecticut, shops at North County in Escondido, California. The official statement cited declining conditions at all 3 properties. The mall data confirms the decline was already advanced. Apple was not the cause of the decline at any of these 3 properties. Apple was the last major anchor reading the vacancy data and deciding the exit was warranted.
Hey, real quick, if you ever thought about buying a house or refinancing a current mortgage or buying rentals, links down below, 2 mortgage courses, blow your mind. Thousands and thousands of people have taken it and they've saved thousands of dollars at the next time they got the loan in fees, and then they learned how to save tens of thousands of dollars in lower interest rates. You're going to walk away a rock star if you ever wanted to have a mortgage. Links below. Now let's get back to the video.
United States store closures crossed 2,000 by week 6 of 2026. Apple's 3 locations are a fraction of that number. But Apple is not a fraction of the country's attention. When the company with the highest retail brand recognition walks out, others notice. Every remaining tenant in that property reads the same exit math before their next lease renewal decision. The revenue numbers make this signal impossible to ignore. Apple reported $111.2 billion in revenue. Services hit $31 billion, an all-time record. Apple is not closing stores because it is struggling. It is closing stores because those properties have already lost the consumer traffic that justifies an Apple presence. Apple is not the problem. Apple is the confirmation the problem has already passed the point where an anchor considers it recoverable. The Towson closure carries one additional layer worth noting. Those 90 workers were the only unionized Apple retail employees. Workers at the other locations were transferred. The Towson workers were handed reapplication forms. If the NLRB issues a complaint, every large retailer with union exposure at a distressed property has to recalculate the legal cost. Here are 3 moves to make before your property tax base reflects what the mall data is already showing. First, if you own a home within 5 miles of a mall that has lost 2 or more anchors, do not wait for your next assessment notice. Vacancy above 20% is the doom loop threshold. Towson is already at 26% before Apple leaves. The assessment correction typically runs 12 to 18 months behind the vacancy data. The residential adjustment is already in motion. A formal assessment appeal filed before the county resets the numbers locks in your current rate. The appeal is free and requires only comparable sales data from your county recorder's public database. It is not complicated. Most appeals are free and can be filed online. The key is to file before the new assessment lands. Second, if you own a small business in a retail corridor adjacent to a distressed mall, your customer base is already contracting. The foot traffic that used to flow from the mall anchor into surrounding retail does not redirect. It disappears. A 5-year lease renewal signed against a declining foot traffic base locks in costs the revenue will not support. At that point, the only options are absorbing the loss, renegotiating from a weak position, or closing. The Sears timeline shows the full cycle runs 2 to 4 years from anchor exit to stabilized lower traffic. Turn your lease decision to that. The difference between those 2 decisions is whether you are the business that survives the contraction or the vacant storefront the next anchor reads when it calculates whether to stay. Third, if you own residential property near a mall running above 15% vacancy, pull your county's commercial assessment. Track it quarterly. The commercial assessment decline precedes the residential rate adjustment by 1 to 2 budget cycles. Watching that number gives you 12 to 24 months of advance notice before the adjustment appears on your bill. The doom loop that started with Sears in 2018 is still running. Apple's exit is the newest confirmed data point. The vacancy at Towson was 26% before Apple announced. The county assessor is looking at an anchor exit. That math produces one outcome, and it shows up on your tax bill before most homeowners see it coming. If you found this useful, share it with someone who owns property or runs a business. We research stories that impact your wallet. Leave a comment if you have questions or topics you want us to cover. We read every comment. This is Economic Ninja, and we will be watching it for you. Economic Ninja is out.